I took the time to research a little about depression, and what I learned is very interesting. Did you know that over 350 million people have suffered due to the cause of depression? Doesn't sound fun, does it? Also, 25 million out of the people who suffered from depression had committed suicide. That is a very serious matter right there. Hey guys, it's me, Logan. You may see me as the pipey, happy, goofy guy on your television screen, your phone screen, whatever you watch me on. But there's something that I should tell you. You see, I wasn't always that pipey, happy, goofy guy. I suffered from depression when I was younger. When I was 11, there was a fire, and my parents were in that fire. My mother died, and my dad was in the hospital. I remember sitting there at the bed of my dad. I remember just watching him, hoping that he would wake up. That's when my uncle came in. I remember him walking in like nothing was going on. And he just looked at me. I was scared. He looked at me like as if it was my fault. That's when the nurse came in and started talking to my uncle. The nurse then turned around and told me what was going on. That my dad wasn't well and he was going to be in the hospital for a while. She told me that I was going to be living with my uncle. And then she walked away. 3 years later, I became 14. And I had already gotten the tattoos and piercings and, well, whatever I wore back then. I just remember walking in and seeing my dad lying there. It was years he was in the hospital. And then that moment happened. I came home and my uncle was on the couch, drunk. I didn't know what was going on, so I thought, hey, I'll just go to my room. But before I could even get by, my uncle grabbed me and pushed me up against the wall and told me it was my fault. I remember him looking at me and telling me it was my fault my dad was in the hospital. I kept telling him no, it wasn't, but he didn't listen, and that's when he hit me. Sometimes I just feel as if the place he hit me, my face, still stings. But it's not. When I was 16, I went back to the hospital to see my dad, to make sure he was okay. But when I left and came home, my uncle was waiting for me. He had just gotten some news from the hospital. My dad was dead. He started yelling at me, telling me it was my fault that he's dead. And that's when he finally broke, and he started hitting me. A month after my dad was dead, we moved away to a new place called Montana. And there was one school there that I never want to go back to. Hopefully I never do. That place was called high school. I was waking up like any other, thinking it was going to be better this way. Maybe I would finally make some friends. But honestly, I didn't want them to see what I was doing to myself, or what my uncle had been doing to me. Every morning I would wake up sore, hurting, and sometimes even bleeding. If you're wondering why I was bleeding, I had been cutting myself, slashing my paws like they were not even there. It was a stupid thing to do. I remember the first day like any other, except it was not like any other. All my other first days were waking up and going on my computer to get my homework. This day was different. I had to get into my locker, which was jammed all the time, and then feel like I was being watched. This guy came up and asked me what my name was. I remember turning around and seeing him and telling him it was Logan. He asked me why I had all the stupid, girly, colorful tattoos. And he started making fun of me for it. Then he yelled all to his friends about my tattoos, and they looked at me.
What a stupid idiot.
And they started making fun of me with
what
them.
A sore loser. Hey loser, where's the girly tattoo?
And at that moment, I just ran. The reason I ran was just to get away. They didn't know what I'd been through, what I saw. 3 months into school, I kept getting abused by the bullies and my uncle. They kept telling me I was worthless, and I started to believe them. So every night I would cut myself even more and more. I sold a lot of my stuff. I stopped doing the things I enjoyed. And then I started getting thoughts of killing myself and what it would be like. I remember being at the top of the school roof, and the school was pretty large, 3-story building. I remember just being up there, and the wind was blowing, and I looked down, and all the people were just watching me. The guy who bullied me kept saying to jump. Then almost everybody started to chant, jump. That showed that no one cared. And then a girl stopped me. She brought me down from the roof and told me that it wasn't the best thing, that suicide wasn't going to solve anything. And then the bully came up, started telling me why didn't I jump. It would have been better for me. And at that moment, I wanted to run upstairs and just jump off the roof. Not wait for a moment again for someone to stop me. That's then when he said that he'd help me jump off. And at that moment, I realized no one really did care. And just like any other night, I went home, took the beating from my uncle, and cut my paw. Again and again and again. I remember being in bed one night, and my uncle's girlfriend came in. She asked me what was wrong, but I didn't answer back. Then she took a chair and sat down next to me. I sat up and just looked at her. And she asked me again if I was okay, what was going on, was everything all right at school? I told her everything was fine, and that everything was going great. And I said it with a smile, but that smile meant nothing. It meant nothing at all. She said okay and left. And then I just took the knife off my desk and started cutting again and again and again. Now that I realize it, when I became 17, I went home for the next day of being beat. And I found the police officers there. She looked at me and told me that she found out what he was doing to me, that he was abusing me. And I asked how. And then I realized the girl who had stopped me from committing suicide was there. And she said that she was walking by and saw what happened. I told her she shouldn't have helped. He's gonna kill me now. And the police lady said that nothing was gonna happen, that everything was gonna be okay, but I kept yelling nothing was gonna be okay, he was gonna kill me. She told me that everything would be fine. I remember turning viciously around and finding my uncle on top of me, beating me up. I also remember waking up in the hospital. I woke up to the feeling of being loved and hugged, saying everything was going to be okay, but I knew everything was not okay. I knew. I asked what happened, and the police officer started to talk while my aunt sat down. The police officer told me that my uncle broke away from the police officer's paws and then started beating me and yelling at me, saying it was my fault he was going to jail. She told me that he was going to be in jail for a long time and probably wouldn't be getting out until his behavior changed. And it was all thanks to one Pacific girl. And I looked and saw her again. She said that I was welcome. And then she left. The police officer told me that the adoption papers have already been filled out by my new family. And then she looked at my uncle's girlfriend and said, "You have officially adopted." We moved into a new house. I went into a new high school. But I was still depressed, 100% depressed. And I still cut myself. I still kept thinking it was my fault my parents were dead. My aunt, or my mom, my new mom, I should say, caught me cutting myself. She asked why was I doing this to myself, and I told her because I was worthless and that I never deserved my parents. That's when she started to cry, and I didn't mean to make her cry. I never wanted to see her cry, and I never meant to. My aunt started sending me to counseling, so I did, and a bunch of other stuff. But when I came to this school, the school that I desperately wanted to get away from. I met some nice people. I made a few friends, but they weren't there all the time. They weren't true friends. That's when I met this new girl. Her name was Emma. She was pretty new to the school. She had trouble getting her locker open the first time, but got it open anyway. I was so nervous to say hi, because I never really had true friends. But this time, I don't know what came into me. Was it the counseling? Or was it just me wanting to get out of my depression? I remember saying hello. And we just talked. She kept asking me if I was okay a few days later, maybe a week or a month after, and I told her everything was fine. A month later, we stopped talking. And she had gotten a boyfriend. So I was used to that. I remember going back to the lunch cafeteria, whatever they called it, and I ran into Emma. And she asked if I wanted to hang out at her table with a few of her friends. And once again, that spark came into me. And I don't know what happened, but I said okay. Looking at that cafeteria, I saw Emma's group, and it was probably the largest out of all. You're probably thinking, whoa, did you just walk up to the table and be like, hey, homies? No. First of all, we didn't have sayings like that back then, and I am not that old. Second of all, I was way too scared to go up and just sit down. I didn't want to feel like I was uninvited. So I just stood there while they all chatted. And I think that's when Emma spotted me and waved and told me to come over. So I did. And at first, everyone just continued with their conversations. But it just seemed a little different. That's when I realized I knew one of the girls at the table. It was Pastel, the one who stopped me from committing suicide. But I wasn't sure, so I just kept quiet. That's when Emma shushed everyone. And the way she shushed everyone was more like yelling at them. Then she just said that she'd like to introduce me. And I think that's when Pastel recognized me. And at that moment, Pastel said hi. And everyone did. They told me that I was welcome, that I was perfectly okay with them. I made some new friends. The brown Cocker Spaniel was Pastel. Destiny was the blonde cat with a bit of orange. Phoenix, also known as, well, I can't really remember, was the red dachshund and her sister Eliza. Dakota was the orange cat. Well, one of the orange cats. And Amy was the other orange cat. And then there was Josh, the gray Great Dane who, well, back in high school was a bit nuts. Ow! That's not true, Logan! Yes, it was. Anywho, I started to become friends with them, and I did. One day, they asked what was our deepest, darkest secrets, and when it came to my turn, I told them everything. My story. The story I'm telling you now. And I told them that if they wanted to not be my friend anymore, I was okay with it. But they stayed. So I hope that my story didn't bore you. But guys, like Pastel said earlier, 350 million people suffer from depression. 25 million have committed suicide due to depression. So if you see someone who's suffering from depression, you should help them out. This is my story. You should pass it on. Hey guys, last announcement. I would just like to say thank you for watching this video. Please, do not make fun of it. Don't leave really weird comments down below. It's very serious what happens to people. Depression can be caused by bullying, by family problems, pretty much by anything that's causing you to be sad and is keeping you sad for a long time. So guys, it's no laughing matter. If you see somebody who's suffering from depression, you need to help them. Get them to counseling, tell an adult. It's very important. Bye guys. LPS Sweetum out.